Hey everyone, I've been pondering the Battle of Winterfell recently with the release of the House of the Dragon Season 2. And of course, we all know how Game of Thrones Season 8 unfolded, but the real clincher, the nail in the coffin, so to speak, for Game of Thrones was, of course, the Battle of Winterfell. So I thought I'd revise it a little bit and correct one minute aspect of a larger dumpster fire. So this is a proof of concept. Um, if there's success to it, if I find success, I'll include more artistic depictions. As you will see, my art is quite rudimentary. Maybe include some more tactical maps and richer detail to come, pending time and resources, and of course reception. So forward. This is coming from a complete Game of Thrones casual. I am by no means a Game of Thrones Giga nerd. Never read the books. I've only really watched the show thoroughly one time. May have watched a few of the battle episodes, and the battle scenes several times. So I understand if my opinions are not the most robust or accredited or valued. But at the end of the day, everyone has an opinion. Um, you know, Everyone has an opinion, and you know how the rest of that saying goes, right? But needless to say, I am quite a good casual fantasy fan, and I like battles, the battles of history, battles of various fantasy. I don't know, Lord of the Rings comes to mind, of course. Not Winterfell, but Helm's Deep, Battle of Minas Tirith slash Planet Pelennor Fields. But I'm going to emphasize I'm here to talk specifically about the Battle of Winterfell, with potentially more analysis to come. So a little bit of a Game of Thrones retrospective and methods of carrying out this change. So I obviously had suspension of disbelief until it really came off the rails in season 8, especially with the Battle of Winterfell. So changing the Battle of Winterfell, like as I said, it was only really season 8 that really made me hate Game of Thrones, and the unfolding of the implausibility starting in season 5 was not something I focused too much on. For instance, and more specifically, the teleporting and irrational planning and beyond the wall to secure the white to show to Queen Cersei was just so ill-advised, ranging from just the suicidal aspect of the plan to not not really having a clear sense if the White Walker magic would still keep the white animated after transporting it across the wall, etc., etc. Yeah, as I said before, these issues became apparent in season 5. I wasn't too focused on them, but yeah, beyond the wall, the whole. I think they went from the wall to King's Landing, picked up Gendry, and went back to the wall in half an episode. So the time frames were just completely out of whack. But it was something I could overlook. However, needless to say, I'm only going to focus on season 8, episode 3, aka The Long Night, and the battle setup and the parameters that unfolded in that specific episode. So nothing will change prior to the battle in question. I'm for this analysis, I am going to stick only with the first 30 to 35 minutes of the episode, and this coincides with the time frame the White Walkers break into Winterfell's walls and the horrendously inept and chaotic retreat back into the walls after the living were absolutely decimated in the open field. And for God knows what reason, the tacticians put their forces on the exterior of the walls. Makes no sense. But other than that, all secondary non-combatants will stay where they are per the episode. Women and children in the crypt, plus Tyrion and Bran under the Weirwood tree. So I guess we're sticking with drawing the Night King at some point to face Bran, although we never really got a conclusion or any meaningful explanation in the episode itself. When they finally do meet, no questions were answered, but we all know that. So, a quick analysis and retrospective of the battle setup we saw. And we're going to start with the most obvious and descending and doing further increasing madness and idiocy. So, the battle stuff we got, I mean, you can just look at this. The forces of the living are just completely going to be deluged by, I believe the Game of Thrones Wikipedia is 100,000 plus whites and whatever assortment of nasty undead animated creatures. Yeah, putting the forces in the field with the Unsullied as the center force, and continuing on. So why, oh why, did the forces of the living decide, and who planned to fight in the field? Only God really knows, right? But fighting a tidal wave horde of bloodthirsty zombies with the impulse to kill anything living in their path is just simply foolish, and just asking to be overwhelmed quickly. And that's exactly what happened, I think. It was just only several minutes before the retreat sounded. Yeah, you're fighting a tidal wave of the undead. You're just asking to get overwhelmed. And we saw in the show, while the dragons were finally used out of desperation to assist the overwhelmed living, let's assume they would run sorties to pick off or thin out the undead ranks. How could the dragons distinguish anything between the mass of bodies clashing on the ground? So this invites the high probability of friendly incineration, and you can't utilize archers and missiles effectively because you don't really know who you're shooting at. I guess you could arc your shots, etc. But the ideal is, the point I'm trying to make with this slide is to really open up the field to just fire well, where you know you're at least firing into the undead enemy, right? So the battle setup we should have got. So prior to the this is a map of Winterfell facing north. It's a little bit askew, but that's okay. So prior to the Battle of Winterfell, we would clear the surrounding structure, clear Winterfell of surrounding structures and the forests, as you can see here. And the purpose is to utilize the timber from these felled trees as the defense, as I will elaborate on later. And secondly, setting up the damn siege engines within the damn walls. The walls are the defender's friend. It's a force multiplier, and yeah, why it wasn't utilized to its maximized extent in the episode is a question, and we'll probably know the answer of too. So yeah, all defenders within the walls. Let's just put them all in there, right? No. There is one caveat that we'll elaborate on later, but we'll get to that. So we're taking every force multiplier possible with clear lines of firing and clear targets for the dragons to just, unleash hell on. And we saw in the episode the horrible utilization of the catapults and trebuchets. I believe they fired one salvo, and there was about 5 or 6 of them. So they looked quite effective, but of course they arguably kind of friendly fired the Dothraki charge. So yeah, why build all that infrastructure and not utilize it to its fullest potential? So in our case, we are putting all siege engines behind the walls. And we also saw ballistas and the Watchers on the Wall. That was season 4, episode 9. So those ballistas will serve as anti-dragon, anti-air machinery, while the catapults and the trebuchets will be anti-infantry, anti-undead. So that's what we're going to. That's how those are going to be our heavy hitters for the defense. And where are we going to stack the troops? So we'll put all available archers on the walls. We're putting the heavy swordsmen to back them up. And since troops will be concentrated on the walls and not overwhelm the open field, troop movements and deployments can be rotated, and tired troops can recuperate easier. I mean, this is the whole point of a force multiplier in the form of the wall, right? Secondly, we're going to put a large contingent of unsullied spearmen behind the gate. Yeah, we can assume that the living know of the giants and their wall destruction capabilities. This would be the second time a giant broke through the wall, could break through the wall. So we're gonna get that contingency covered, and any overflow troops would end up in the Godswood protecting Bran. I mean, there seems to be quite a lot of area to Winterfell, more than we see, but overall, how big is the Force of Living? I think it's about 20-30,000. Let's check. Whatchamacallit. Battle of Winterfell. Wikipedia. Okay, let's check. Let's confirm. I should have checked this earlier, but that's okay. I doubt there's 100,000 Dothraki cavalry, but yeah, 10,000 Northern infantry, 8,000 Unsullied, some Ironborn. So let's say, for sake of argument, 20,000. We can work with it. Okay, let's restart the slideshow. Okay, let's proceed. So after clearing the forest of the trees, the city or the castle, I'm not sure if it's castle, city, fortress of Winterfell looks like this, with the north being towards the White Walker army. So next step, with so much manpower, we'd build we'd dig out a stylized moat, let's say 40 meters wide with 100 meters spokes and 10 to 15 meters deep. I'm sure all the horsemen of the Dothraki and the dragons could help with the manual labor. So let's proceed. Now, with all that felled timber, we line the floor of the moat with the spears, the skewers, and tipped with dragon glass. Accessing the walls or reaching the walls will be no easy task. So let's think of forest of spears lining the moat, kind of like this infamous scene of in Braveheart where William Wallace and the Scotsmen fend off the English heavy cavalry. I know the Battle of Stirling in this movie Battle of Stirling Bridge, I should say, is not so accurate. But, it's entertaining, and that's what the focus is. So, stage one, the battle opening. We will hit the defenders will hit the White Walker horde hard, fast, and furiously. There's a safe assumption to make that the White Walker White Horde will just flood wholesale to the walls, targeting the nearest living. It would just be a deluge of ice zombies. So the effective range of a trebuchet being, of course, approximately 350 to 400 meters. So as soon as the White Walkers and the Whites are within range, just unleash hell. As you can see from my expert tactician's map. Using flaming shot, of course, for maximum efficiency. Possibly putting, I don't know, shards of dragon glass to really send a magical shrapnel that's very damaging to the whites within it. And at 150 meters, the approximate range of I think this is a longbow, but we'll say that the Winterfellians and allies do have longbows. It could be 100 to 150 meters, whatever it is. Start unleashing hell with flaming arrows, dragon-tipped flaming arrows at this point. And presumably, at this point, the Horde will begin to circle the wall and fall in the moat under the hail of missiles. So just imagine hellfire raining all over as the whites operating under the path of least resistance just, encircle and try to climb and, crawl their way to the roots of the walls. And let's take a minute to picture the scene of the heavy missiles and arrows flying. The living are synchronized in their salvos, launching trebuchet payloads, then ballista bolts, then flaming arrows. It's just, like a flower of death emanating from the circular Winterfell fortress. Thousands of undead are cut down, exploded in flaming trebuchet payload impacts. 2 or 3 are skewered at a time with dragon-tipped ballista bolts and dropped in waves with a flurry of arrows. We all seen it before, right? Think Helm's Deep, right? Here's a awesome AI image of, the salvos firing from the walls. So at stage 2, the battle intensifies. The crescendo and hitting the Night King right where it hurts. In the middle of the arrows, flaming trebuchet payloads and ballista bolts, the presumably a little bit less than 100,000 at this point, White Horde reached the roots of the walls. The Night King watches alongside his White Walker lieutenants at the edge of the battlefield, atop the undead Viserion, of course. And as the undead begin to scale the walls, Jon and Dany fly down from the heavens, and from each edge of the castle, unleash their flame and ignite the moat. Turns out the moat was lined in pitch, adding extra flammability. Maybe Winterfell has access to Dragonfire. Who knows? Something really cinematic, really cool, and really destructive. So thousands of whites light up at the bottom of the moat, death trapped within. So this is picture this image, just a flaming spiral around Winterfell. So if it wasn't obvious by now by my expert drawing, the moat has been fashioned in the shape of the Targaryen sigil. So as opposed to the episode, none of this idiocy with the 5-foot wide trench in the episode traversed by a lying body, which I don't know how they didn't see that coming, but that's how it unfolded. So the fire of this moat / sigil burns hot and bright, perhaps again lined with dragon fire, casting a blazing reflection in the shocked White Walker's eyes. As thousands of whites are charred to ash and cast off the walls, the Night King finally cracks a look of categorical frustration. So up until this moment, the Night King has had the monopoly on the intimidation factor with raising the dead in Hardhome and Bodies in the Spiral in the first episode of Season 8. So now the living can really stick it to the Night King. The Targaryen sigil is, the sign of the kings of Westeros, etc. So this really sticks it to him, and it's a great motivation factor for the forces of the living, as up until this point, the White Walkers and the Whites cannot touch the impenetrable flaming walls. So the Night King begins to get desperate at this point. The defenders cheer and continue to unleash volleys on the stopped White army. Flaming jets secure the perimeter of the moat even further. Cyclically, unleashing flame and burning any whites at the edge of the moat. And so indignant, the Night King and Viserion dart to the wall, attempting to create a breach. So the Night King's getting a little bit desperate at this point, and his intent is to use Viserion's unholy blue fire to create a breach and finally get his forces into the walls. But specifically for this purpose, the ballistas deter the Night King and Viserion from getting close with dragon-tipped bolts, and he calls off and pulls away from the attack. Yeah, so this is another beautiful AI rendition of Drogon and Rhaegal unleashing flame with impunity on the amassed white horde. And here's another one. So yeah, really easy. The defenders are really utilizing their force multiplier and their missile advantage and their dragon fire advantage at this point, which makes total sense and probably should have been the way the battle played out. So, stage 3 of the battle: a sally forth of the Horse Riders, taking the fight to the White Walkers. So I've conveniently omitted a big portion of the living force at this point, that being, of course, the cavalry. And as we recall in Season 8, Episode 3, why, oh why, was the cavalry wasted? It's far better to use them in the way that I will explain. So it goes without saying, yeah, it was completely wasted in a frontal charge into the darkness, into an undead awaiting a horde. So now they can be utilized to their fullest extent. So as the Night King recoils from his failed attempt to blast the walls, the cavalry of the Dothraki and the Knights of the Vale plus Jorah emerge from the flanks and crash into the whites from the sides and the back. And their purpose is to maximize hit and run cycle charges against the whites. And this time they actually have illumination from the smoldering missiles and the ignited moat, providing dazzling light for the cavalry to conduct these hit and runs. And we could assume that the archers are cognizant of this. They would be, 100%. So they could just focus on shooting the closer enemies as the cavalry are on the periphery doing their thing. So yeah, this is kind of how I envision the battle tactics. So amidst the chaos, the intent, I don't know why it wasn't elaborated in the episode, but it makes sense that the White Walker commanders are the prime target. We see that they're kind of like mini droid control ships. If you get that Star Wars Episode 1 reference, props to you. But yeah, it goes without saying that they should be the cavalry's prime target. They are the orchestrators of their undead minions. So in the fracas of the repeated clashes, Jorah and Kono, the lead Dothraki dude, finally get a clear pass of one of the walkers. They break and charge towards him. Jorah's knocked off his horse with a firm blow from an ice staff, and Kono engages as a last-ditch distraction. However, the White Walker's might is too much. Kono's mortally wounded, and as the White Walker turns towards the incapacitated Jorah, Kono lets out a Dothraki war cry and charges the White Walker. Jorah finally regains his composure and slays the White Walker from the back. I believe he does. He does have a Valyrian steel sword. So, yeah. So after the White Walker commander is slain, a huge swath of the whites drop. Jorah remounts and withdraws. So here's another cool image. Of course, I'd rather have Jorah doing this, but maybe this is the point in time where the Dothraki gets the distraction on the White Walker commander. Pretty cool. But anyway, stage 4. So this is where the battle flips. The Night King strikes back, and he finally invokes his dark ice magic to penetrate Winterfell. So the Night King and his dark ice blizzard puts the defenders in check. As Kono is defeated and one of the White Walker commanders is slain, the Night King finally veers back and blasts away at the horsemen, just making them flee. The Night King then rises over the battlefields as missiles and living dragons still continue to blast away with impunity. At last, the Night King invokes his dark ice magic, and the momentous blizzard shown in the episode blows in from the north. Winterfell is impacted by the blast, putting up the flaming moat and buffeting the dragons away. The defenders are in complete disarray in this icy fog of war as they stagger back to their feet and man the defenses. And out of this icy miasma, a fiery blue hellfire cuts through the gate of Winterfell as it is strafed by the undead Viserion. Many defenders are blown off the wall. The defenders rise and attempt to man the parapets again. However, the initial waves of whites begin to crest the wall, and the battle atop Winterfell's walls commences. Jon, Brienne, the Hound, Gendry et al. Gets thrown Arya to begin the fight valiantly atop the walls. Grey Worm and then Sullied, in the meanwhile, form ranks at the ramshackle gate, preparing for the incoming onslaught. The undead wave pours in. At this point, an undead giant atop an undead mammoth smashed through the gate, ramming into the ranks of the Unsullied. Think the Mumakil charge into the riders of the Rohirrim and Return of the King. But many Unsullied are thrown around. Archers on the walls try stopping the giant and mammoth, but they are consumed from the back by the swarming whites. Grey Worm musters his composure, throwing a spear into the mammoth's eye. It crumbles into undead ash. The giant dismounts, thrashing the ranks of the Unsullied. Grey Worm satches another spear, sliding through the giant's legs, and thrusts up, skewering the giant as it crumbles into ash. The Unsullied reform their lines as the impacting undead horde crash into them. So the battle's in full crescendo mode now, full zenith. And that concludes my initial... Well, first of all, let me bring attention to this super cool undead giant riding an undead mammoth. So, yes, this concludes my initial 30-minute retrospective changes of the Battle of Winterfell. Will the penetration of the walls lead to the downfall of the defenders? I haven't answered that question myself. So I come to my last chapter, reflections and thoughts. What's next? What are your thoughts? Is this a coherent way to get the first portion of the Battle of Winterfell more fully developed and more logically developed? What do you think? Was my scenario relatively coherent? Could you imagine it? How would you reformulate the Battle of Winterfell? As I said prior, I feel like this revision maximizes both plausibility and cinematicness. Not sure if that's a valid word. Yeah, after this stage of the battle, I'm still deciding what would happen next. What would you change or add? How does the next stage of the battle develop? Needless to say, it goes without saying that Jon should kill the Night King at some point in the episode. Uh, None of this Arya doing it, flying out of wherever like a spider monkey. And as someone more famous than me said, having Arya slay the Night King is like Chewbacca taking out Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi. So that's something that 100% needs to change. But, anyways, I thank you for your time and listening to my presentation. Maybe, John's showdown with the Night King looks something like this. Again, not the exact AI specifications I wanted, but pretty cool visualization nonetheless. Anyways, I thank you and look forward to your opinions, thoughts, critiques, criticisms, and input. All the best. Signing off. Have a good day, morning, evening, night.